And welcome back to Belmont Bunch. Today, I'm here with James as usual, and we are talking about 4 games because we missed last week. We have Nashville, Montreal, Winnipeg, Minnesota. We'll have our usual hot and not. We'll talk about Leo Komarov and some implications of where that cap space could go. And then we'll ditch after a really long goodbye. That's usually my party move.
Thank you, Tom, for that amazing intro. We did not, just to quickly address all the fans that watch this show all the time, we didn't have an episode last week because Tom and I are not the best at planning. But hey, we're back for a regular episode with no compensation for that lost episode whatsoever. So
we're saying things you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, hot takes. That doctors get mad about. Doctors hate our hot takes.
You won't even believe what we're going to talk about in this episode. It's hockey.
So, all right, we have 4 games to talk about since not just this past week, the week before, which gives us Nashville. So, because there's only 1 game last week. So that would be Nashville Predators. We lost that game in a shootout, 3-2. So, Tom, what were you? I know, without going into too much detail, since you have the recap up, why don't you talk about that game, Tom?
Yeah, that was a frustrating one because it just felt like they let the second point slip away. They definitely could have won this game. Could have won it in regulation. They gave up 2 goals to Tanner Jeannot, which is a fun name, but it wasn't fun when he had a puck deflect off him and go in. Sorokin played really well. The Islanders played one of their better games of the year because we outshot them 35-20. That's something that we don't usually do. Usually we're getting outshot, but we're keeping it to the outside. And it felt like we did keep it to the outside, and we just couldn't finish them off. And it was one of those games that frustrates you because you go, if we just had a little bit more scoring, we'd be able to put these teams away. But I do think better, news is on the way there. Not news, better, Paul Mary, I'll just say like this because I can't come up with the words for it. I think Paul Mary is very much due for a goal explosion, and I think Paul Mary is and Zach Parise is who I meant, is also going to start getting going soon. I mean, he's been playing well. Mm-hmm. It's just not translating into goals. So there's a couple of guys that I feel like are going to start scoring. We haven't gotten much out of Pajot yet either. So I think there's a lot of room for growth for the Islander offense. Beauvillier, you know what? I'll save Beauvillier stuff for the Montreal game, but I've really liked his game recently.
Yeah, why don't we roll right into the Montreal game? Because that was, it seemed like the Brock Nelson show since he had 4 goals, but obviously Beauvillier, I think, was assisted on all 4 of them, or at least the hat trick, the first 3.
Yeah, at minimum, he had 3 assists. He was, you know what? I'll just look it up to make sure I'm right, but in the meantime,
right here,
3 assists. But I mean, Beauvillier, I wish I had given him more credit in the actual recap. I made up for that in the next recap for the Winnipeg game by adding an addendum. But
yes,
Beauvillier really drove, Brock all the way there. It's like, he drove Brock there, and then Brock finished it off. Brock was just, I think I said in the video, just had a good nose for the net that game. It wasn't his usual snipes. That's usually Brock's game is, just rip one top corner. But it was a lot of just chipping the puck over the goalie, and a lot of that came off of the great work from Anthony Beauvillier to, chip him the puck in the first place. Some good transition stuff from Beauvillier, and Beauvillier is such a good skater, and I'm really enjoying watching him so far, and seeing him continue to develop. And you're still at the end of the day, you're like, oh, can I get a few more points? But he's such a he's a player that you have fun watching though, and he creates stuff.
Yeah, and I know I've said this before. Parise gives me big Beauvillier vibes, and something we'll talk about.
He's old, Beauvillier.
It's weird though. He does not look old, And
No.
and we were he's 35, right? Isn't Parise 35? He's the same age as Ovechkin, and Ovechkin looks like he's 55. But obviously that doesn't matter. But this is going to sound weird, but Parise, Beauvillier, and Leo Komarov, who we'll talk more about later, give me the same vibes and types of, in general, I guess, hustle that they tend to have while playing is that they all three of them have like to the best of their ability, like whatever speed they can muster up. Pavilier probably being the fastest out of those three, but like trying their best to hustle, like dump the puck, get in other players' faces, and stuff like that. So
Yeah, no, and it's funny because I think if somebody heard you say those three names, they'd be like, well, I don't know, but I think you're right about they give like each of those guys give they're all pretty much all the time like even if they're not producing, I'm very rarely saying, oh, that guy's not like working hard enough.
Yeah,
like those guys are working hard, and some of them it's just that like some of them are a little bit more skilled than the others.
yeah.
I'm singling out Leo a little bit here.
Oh, I wasn't gonna mention who was who, but okay.
Well, look, it's kind of a backhanded compliment, but he's not very talented. Like he's not like puck skills talented, Leo. But I do agree with you that like there was some value to him just getting the puck in deep and playing a simple game because you kind of knew what you were getting out of him. And there were even points last year on the first line where he wasn't completely terrible.
Yeah.
Which is like, give him credit where it's due. But yeah, I think you've got something there with those three. They're like good middle six guys that aren't going to be stars, but they're going to give you the effort.
Yeah, I guess that sounds about right. But then the other interesting thing, I don't know if you mentioned, because we got the Wallstrom goal and also the Pajot goal, which is his first of the season. I don't think he scored again since this game, but yeah. His only of the season so far. So like that's to see. Wallstrom's been probably the most consistent scorer of the team so far, even though Brock had 4 goals in this game. Like Wallstrom, this was his 5th in this game, and then obviously Pajot. Hopefully I'm always hoping, like you just said about the previous game, that he's starts to produce and stuff, because it's like, again, like I for some reason, I guess
he's the key to this. If we could get him working,
if we can get, he's a feistier player than we've had before.
He's a feistier character than we've had before.
So so that, not to forget to shout out Oliver Wallstrom, who's definitely watching right now, and can't wait to hear his name.
Absolutely. So Montreal, I guess the only thing left to say is, Barry apologized to Sorokin late or after the game because they kind of.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they kind of broke down late in the game, and it was pretty annoying because, it left a bad taste in your mouth after a very, very dominant game. But Chara broke his stick. Why is Chara out there on the power play? Barry even said, "Yeah, I was trying to get guys points because we were crushing, and you're trying to get some guys going that were struggling." And instead, you lost your goalie a shutout. So they did get it right back. Kind of transitioning into the Winnipeg game, they did get that shutout for Sorokin right back. And this was like a perfect road game. They got an early goal. They just played a pretty smart game from there, and then chipped away at Winnipeg, got a second one. And honestly, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot better for the Islanders because Eric Comrie, Winnipeg's backup goalie, who started in this game, played really well. The Islanders had a lot of chances. Paul Mary got stoned, and Paul Mary, I think, has been really good so far. Like I said, I think he's got a lot of goals coming up. So he just keeps getting stoned, and he keeps getting chances turned away.
Yeah, he has 5 assists though, I think, which is
So he's
pretty great.
He's still. Ever since he started playing on that second line with Bailey going to the first, that second line's been excellent. And I think that kind of coincides also with Beauvillier playing better. But also in the Montreal game, I believe... Oh, no, actually, the Winnipeg game it was. Paul Mary did a great job. He kind of posted up like a basketball player near the blue line on his own entry, kind of attracting the last defender up to him. And then he kind of just chipped it for Brock, and then Brock had all day to shoot. So, Paul Mary's contributing. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he's an issue. And I think at this point, it's pretty easy to say, based on the Winnipeg and the Montreal game as well, Chara is like the weak link. I know I saw on Twitter a couple of people, so I don't think it's like a big trend, but, a couple of people here and there are like, oh, what if we go after scoring more so? But I really think the issue at this point, very obviously, is Chara's inability to stay out of the penalty box and to just keep up with anyone. He has, I think, analytically, he's been getting the slightest bit better each game. And he actually, in the Winnipeg game, I believe, had like the best game score out of any of the Islanders, which is really funny.
Yeah.
But also, like, I'll give him his credit where it's due. He's definitely not been as self-destructive recently. But at the same time, you want him to be the seventh defenseman, I feel like, because I would like them to get a little bit younger on the blue line there, and we'll talk about it when we get to the Leo stuff. Like possible replacements.
But Tom, what about the memes? You know,
the memes. We'll always have the memes in our hearts.
That's true.
We'll have the wins.
I would have been happy if we signed Chara, and he didn't, and he just played in the AHL. You know,
he signed a 1-day deal.
Yeah, exactly.
And left. Yeah, I don't think he would do that because we traded him.
No, yeah, exactly. But okay, so
he'll
going
sign a
on
1-day
to
deal with Boston.
The Wild game.
Yes.
Which was difficult to watch, and so my quick opinion on it was that it felt the first two periods felt a lot like the Winnipeg game. You know, it wasn't, it was 2-1 by the end of the second period, but I was like, okay, like, if we get one more goal, like we could probably park the bus. And then the Wild obviously scored with 10 minutes left in the third. Mm-hmm. And then to tie it, and then they got the go ahead goal, and I was like, geez, this fell apart quickly.
Yeah. I pretty much the same thing. I think that third period, in the video, I was like, no excuses. They just didn't play well. I have one excuse. It was said in the comments, because originally I was like, well, Minnesota had a back-to-back too, so we can't just say. But we did have 3 games in 4 nights. So, for them to only play one bad period, I feel like in that whole stretch, although they played like a bad final 5 minutes against Montreal. But overall, a very good 3-game set. Minnesota's a pretty good team too, so it's not like they lost. If they lost to a worse team, I'd be a little bit frustrated with that result. But they lost to a good team. They, like you said, they had played a really good road game through 2. And the third period, they just didn't have the energy, and Minnesota.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Really good job.
That's weird. I don't think this will be a trend, but that is odd because I feel like last season we were super strong in the third period throughout. That was pretty consistent throughout, and we would almost like set ourselves up for failure by like either getting behind or somehow getting out of the first period not behind, but like it always felt like a miracle. And then by like the second period, it was like, okay, now the game started. And then the third was generally our strongest. I can't say that for sure. That's just based on memory, but so that is kind of weird to see us, and maybe it's just the road, the long road trip. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that definitely played a part, and getting a few days off. We'll talk about. Do you want to now very, 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 very quickly touch on maybe the next couple of games? I think we.
For the schedule, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah. So I like only
Tom's going off the script here, shifting around the schedule.
So we got some challenging games upcoming, and we're very close to the end of this road trip now. We got 3 games left on the road trip, and I feel like it has to start with a win in Jersey. It has to, because the 2 games after that are pretty tough. Florida has struggled a little bit ever since Bobrovsky went down, but they're still like a very, very potent offense, and so that game will be a good test for the Islanders. Obviously, Tampa will too, even though Tampa hasn't been excellent yet. But I feel like it has to start with a win in Jersey. Even with Jersey coming off scoring 7 goals, they're a team that typically doesn't score a lot.
And as we were just saying right before this started, we have the same exact record right now, 5-3-2.
Yeah, and that just goes to show how good the Metro is.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, of course at this point, and you also said that no team in the Metro is below 500.
Yeah.
At the moment, which is insane.
I mean, NHL 500, so it doesn't count the overtime losses.
Right.
Yeah. I will say I'm a Metro supremacist.
Interesting way of phrasing that.
Yeah, no, I tried to make it, as terrible as possible. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that stretch.
Yeah, no, it makes, and then
do you want to?
Well, I just want to say one note about that, which is, so it's weird to think that, in a week and a half, we'll be playing our first home game against Calgary, which I'm pretty sure Calgary's looking pretty good right now.
Yes.
So that's
Yes,
unfortunate for us, but at least it will most likely be a good game.
Yeah, you could say they're like lurking behind our shoulders.
Why would I say that? Oh, God. I just saw it.
Yeah, I didn't plan that. I just had that up from wearing it the other day.
I literally didn't even notice. For the very few audio listeners that we have, Tom has a Calgary jersey behind him. And so this is the last road trip week that we have, and then we have pretty much exactly a week of home games, and then we're back on the road. So
yeah, and the home games are not easy.
No, yeah. So we got Calgary. I mean, we're getting a week ahead of ourselves, Tom.
Yeah.
Calgary, Toronto, the Rangers, and Pittsburgh. So that should be
yeah. So I mean, it'll be good from the standpoint of like, oh, we can start to measure ourselves up.
Yeah, that's true.
Against those teams, but it's bad in terms of I don't want to watch close games. I like beating teams 6-2. But anyway, do you want to start with your hot not?
Yeah. So for me, at least, it was pretty obvious this week. You might disagree with this. Was a pretty hot take for the not player. It's a hot take for the not player. See what I did there?
Boy.
Which is Zdeno Chara. Not. He's just like you said. He's the weak link. I don't think there's too much more to explain on it. I'm pretty sure everybody kind of feels that way. Mm-hmm. And admittedly, I'm not. I don't think I have that hockey sense yet, where I can say like I can see how players aren't performing well, unless it's obvious. So normally it won't be till either I watch your recap after the game or something like that it really clicks about where things went wrong. And I mean, sometimes it's also obvious if he's not jumping up on a play because he's just whatever.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's good because he's bad in very obvious ways. So if you're, it's good for if you're viewing and you're trying to get into hockey and you're like, oh, what's bad?
This is what not
bad.
To do.
Because it's very different from when Josh Bailey is playing really badly. He does it in a way that
I might
feel
forget about him.
It's not as entertaining. It's more frustrating.
I see.
Chara, I'll give Chara this. It is pretty funny how bad he is.
How bad? I mean, how do you think he was last year? Do you think the fall off from last year to this year is that great?
No, I do think that last year the only reason it wasn't worse is because he was playing with one of the best defensemen in the league. He was playing with Charlie McAvoy, Long Beach native.
That's right. Yes. That was a weird playoff run when we were playing Boston. Because it's just I felt like the entire time the Islanders were just beating up McAvoy, not maybe intentionally, but I don't know. He was really, he took the brunt of the entire Islanders. Yeah,
the Islanders were like, oh, who's the key piece of that defense?
Right, exactly.
Very obviously him. My hot not. Sorry.
My hot. I was just gonna say my hot for this week is definitely Nelson. I mean, he scored so much, and that's off the back of Palmieri and Beauvillier for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They that whole when Palmieri was on the second line, they worked as a unit. It was awesome to watch that. Mm-hmm. But Nelson obviously had the finishing touch. And also, quick note, something I want to mention about. I think it was the Canadiens game. Yeah, that first goal by Nelson. Beauvillier, that whole sequence was just amazing to watch and very confusing because I had to watch the replay a couple times. Mm-hmm. Beauvillier got it into the zone. I don't remember if it deflected off a skate, but it got to Brock. Brock tried to go around some defensemen. It kind of went through the legs of one defenseman, and Palmieri just happened to be in the right spot, he was in the right spot. He probably tried to be there to just pop it right back to Brock when right at the right moment, and Brock was able to finish it. Mm-hmm. So it's that type of working together. It's what the Islanders are about, man.
It was the greatest broken play.
Yes, that's a perfect way of putting it, yeah.
The early season, it was just it was almost like they accidentally scored.
When I didn't even see Palmieri on the initial, when I saw it or the first replay, I thought it had bounced off a person's skate and Brock got it back. And yeah, so it's just I thought it was totally luck, but there was some, sense to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all right, what do you think?
Yeah, my hot You know what's funny is, I mean, I am kind of stealing from you. I wanted, I wanted to play devil's advocate. I wanted to go full ESPN and give out an opinion that's objectively wrong, but it's different than yours.
Just classic ESPN. Just be wrong.
Yeah. Well, like, because like they're taking, it's a show where it's two people. They have to have different opinions. But I am going to kind of just piggyback and go hot the whole second line,
That's fair.
because all like you just basically, described in one goal. They all, had a hand in basically all of Brock's goals. I was gonna just give it to Bo, but like when you score 4 goals in a week, how often is that gonna happen? So
It was
gotta give,
4 goals in a game.
but
It was like five
goals.
five
Gotta win it.
goals this week, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so crazy week for Brock. So you got it. I mean, Brock's obviously the standout, but definitely got to give his line mates credit. For the worst of the week, I mean, yeah,
Mayfield.
nah.
Mayfield looks great compared to Chara.
No, I've been, I feel bad because like during the regular season last year, obviously like he was kind of my whipping boy, but Mayfield, like from the playoffs last year on, I've been pretty happy with him.
I agree.
I feel like maybe he's been forced, without Letty, he's kind of been forced this year into like, having to get like, it's like, all right, you have to get better right now, and he's like, all right.
Yeah, I mean, it might be as simple as that. Like, and sometimes I feel like I've talked about this before. Last year, whenever we played I have one of these twisty things that fly away in my hands. Watch this. Ooh, pretty cool. Whenever we played the Capitals last year, Ovechkin was out for like these random games because of the COVID protocol and stuff, and we lost pretty much all the games when he wasn't playing, and then we won most of the games when he was playing, and that was just again like the weirdest thing. And I think it's because sometimes one player can have such an influence over the play style and whatever and all that stuff, and just ice time, I suppose. And I don't think that's necessarily true with Letty and Mayfield, but it could just be like, it could be that Mayfield wasn't, he didn't want to step up and make those zone entries or do the pinching. Like I think he has 1 goal so far, right? Because he pinched and that was
he got a little bit of a lucky bounce on that.
That's true. So it could be something
Columbus.
Close Columbus. Wait, when was it? Let's see. Let me go back.
That was the overtime loss to Columbus.
Oof, I think of course. That was like 3 weeks ago. On the 21st of October. And yeah, so it could be that is interesting to think. It could be exactly like he's now focusing on a part of a game that he maybe felt he didn't have to, or nobody told him necessarily. Maybe somebody else was like, no, leave that I don't know. You never know. It's weird.
No, I think there's something to that. He's been pinching a little bit more, and but not at the expense of his defense. I feel like I've seen him block he blocked a big shot in the Minnesota game that kept us in it a little, for a little bit longer. So yeah, I guess as an addendum to the end of that, I'm gonna add a not player. Dobson. I have not been very impressed. Maybe it's I think that's a lot of expectations. He's still like 21, but it did feel like this was a big year for him to start to grow into probably at some point replacing Mayfield. But Mayfield's been better than him, and Dobson, I think we said coming into the year, without Letty, we need someone to be able to be the rover. And we've had a few times on the power play where Dobson loses the puck at the line, and now it's a shorthanded chance the other way. And I think part of this, I think it does stem from like the Islanders trying to find someone who could play with Zdeno Chara and not suck, and they can't find that person, which kind of tells you what you need to know. There's no one that can make Zdeno Chara on this current roster. There's no right-handed defenseman that can make Zdeno Chara look good. We do not have Charlie McAvoy. So, yeah.
Well, on that news, who do you think could possibly replace Zdeno Chara, Thomas?
Yeah, so we could start this up with talking about Leo probably looking like he's going to head out over back to Europe, and the Islanders are going to be off the hook for, I think, all of his contract. They're like mutually agreeing to it. Cap Friendly will probably help us out tomorrow by putting out a tweet when it's made official. But I did see that.
something that it was official, but maybe just like the paperwork hasn't gone through yet or
Yeah.
whatever.
So like the team's done it. Like
Okay,
everything's
yeah.
done and dusted in terms of like handshake stuff.
Yeah.
But they just have to put it through to the league, I guess. And as much as we, made fun of Leo, I think you very thoughtfully pointed out that it was never a lack of effort. It was
Just a lack of talent.
and that's how we'll end it.
That's terrible. No, I don't mean that, but maybe
No,
a little bit.
he definitely was. It seems like the teammates loved him. Seems like he was a really good locker room guy.
It also seems like this is a very selfless thing he's doing to mutually
Sure.
waive his contract, because he's probably like, you know what, this might be the best thing I could do to help the team right now is to give them more cap space, and I know I'm not going to play, so.
Yeah, and I definitely think it's better for him as well, because nobody likes to just sit at home, and like if you have the ability to still play and you want to, then then you should. And I'm glad that for the Islanders it's good from the cap space perspective. For Leo, it's good for. I kind of want to see him have success overseas now. I want to see him get to end out, kind of successfully. So yeah.
So with that cap space,
yes,
we might have some in no way official, but just people have pointed out some possible replacements that might
some
fit
natural
Chara.
some natural fits, just guys that are probably being shopped that fit the role that the Islanders are looking for. And those two players, as of right now, there's more. I'll probably do a video at some point. I'll do a little bit more research on like who are some other left-handed defensemen that could play top 4 to top 6 minutes and fit contract-wise. The Islanders are definitely expanding their cap space with the Johnny Boychuk trade, which also happened. So we're all he was on LTIR anyway, but it gives the Islanders more flexibility. If they have to put somebody on LTIR, they have more room on that now. So Lou's doing a really good job of like these little moves that are saving us money. But for the Chara replacement, the first one that was mentioned, I think it was from the Denver Post, the reporter at the Denver Post, that Samuel Girard, left-handed defenseman, very young. He is 23. Goodness, he is younger than us, James. And he has had an interesting career so far. Kind of had a lot of success the last couple of years with Colorado. They went out and they got Devontae's from us. And now they have a great prospect, Bowen Byram, who's kind of, making Samuel Girard redundant. And Samuel Girard's making $5 million a year until 2026, 2027. So that's the major flaw I see is that contract, because I think the Islanders are going to tend to lean towards a shorter contract with less risk that will cost less. Because I feel like for Girard, the Islanders would have to send maybe Bailey the other way, and I do think that could be a good trade for the Islanders.
Bailey and Taves back at it.
Yeah, but I do like I like Bailey, but I have to acknowledge that he's been fairly rough this year. It hasn't been great.
I mean, do you think you would actually do like better on a different team, or are you just saying that it might just make that trade worth it enough for?
Well, the cap would be pretty even going each way, so
okay.
It wouldn't. Colorado wouldn't be taking on much money because it's almost a straight swap of money. Because I think Bailey's making 5.5 and Girard's making 5, so it's just adding $500K. And it's a shorter contract, Bailey's. So it's, but he is older. So there's a lot of trade-offs, pros and cons there. SWOT analysis, marketing.
Yeah, I don't know. Because the downside of Girard.
Say whatever you want.
Sam, I'll call him Samuel. The downside of Samuel is that I guess he was bad in the playoffs this past year.
Apparently, according to that Denver Post reporter, they were not. Colorado was not happy with his play.
That sounds harsh. Yeah, but was that his first playoff appearance? Probably not.
Nope.
Where?
I think it was probably second or third.
Interesting.
He's young, but he's I mean, he played well enough to earn that $5 million deal. But,
Yeah, that's I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say, right? I didn't watch those games, and I don't know enough about the player, but yeah, like from my if I put on, sorry, I'll let you go.
Go ahead. Sorry. No, you go.
Okay, I was gonna say if I put on my GM hat, yeah, long-term contract for somebody that has the potential to just fall off immediately is scary, but at the same time, they are so young. So and I feel like if you were a defenseman, going to the Islanders would seem really appealing because you're like, oh, I know that like all their forwards, most of their forwards, whatever, like are great two-way players. So it's like you're always gonna have support. Defense is always stressed, so it's not like you're just gonna be left out to dry.
Yep. And it could be a good yin and yang with Scott Mayfield. Scott Mayfield, who's more of a stay-at-home defenseman, playing with a more offensive defenseman, could be a good. One of them is pinching, the other one's playing back. I could see that working out. That kind of worked with Nick Leddy and him.
Yeah, it's true.
That group was also rough together sometimes. So I just think at this point, for me, it's almost the fact that Chara. Like I said, they're trying to see who plays well with him. And in doing that, it's taking it like we've broken our top defensive pairing apart at times. And that shouldn't be the case. Like you should play your best pairing and then, figure it out from there. And I think figuring it out would mean bringing in someone that's better than Chara. The other player that fits maybe a little bit better, I will say Samuel Girard definitely fits that Nick Leddy mold of an offensive defenseman. So if you're someone that just wants that, and it's a similar cap that Nick Leddy made $5.5 million too. So it is less money than Nick Leddy was making, and the Islanders have done a good job of digging up cap space.
Yeah.
So, but the other defenseman, more cost effective, just cheaper. I'll say cheaper for now. Travis Dermott has been floated. He's been a healthy scratch a few times for the Leafs. The Leafs are working Sandin. I've heard it said both ways. And I think Timothy Liljegren. So two of their top prospects are now finally kicking into the lineup. It's forced a couple of their veteran defensemen into like not everyday roles. And Travis Dermott, it's not a veteran. He is younger than me. He's 24.
Yeah.
But he's making $1.5 million this year and $1.5 million next year. And he has experience playing top 4 minutes. So he is kind of that mold of like, someone that could just play non-top pairing minutes. He does fit that. He's very cheap. It was, I think, falsely pointed out by Arthur Staple that Arthur Staple thought he was drafted by Lou too, because Lou was in Toronto.
Yeah.
Lou, I think, was still in Jersey at that time. So that was incorrect.
Interesting.
But Travis Dermott, I just better than Chara. Basically, it comes down to and cheap.
That's
cheap and better than Chara.
The way that it looks like to me, it's like if we went with either of these two people, Travis Dermott's more of like a Band-Aid kind of guy in the sense that like he could work out and it could work great, but like we know he'll be better than Chara. And that's pretty much it. Whereas Girard will be probably somebody you'll have to like.
That's a commitment.
You'll kind of have to probably build around him, and if he doesn't work out, it's obviously a bigger risk. So it's bigger risk long term, but possibly, I mean, who do you think is so Girard is probably actually better though? Like it's probably like.
Yeah, I think he's volatile, as was pointed out in that Vegas series last year. He's volatile in that he gives the puck away a fair amount because he is kind of an offensive defenseman. That defense is not his strongest part of the game. But Dermott, I think it's definitely the safer option is Dermott. Girard, now I guess one of the worries would be, do we want him playing for that long when we have Samuel Bolduc in the minors and we think very highly of him, and Robin Salo in the minors and we think very highly of him. But with Andy Green, he's going to be gone soon.
Yeah,
so
and the fact that he's even playing this season is it's not mind blowing, but I didn't even think he was going to play last season. And the fact that we're not talking about him being bad right now is like surprising, you know?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is Chara's been so bad
Yeah,
that
Chara's
it's
been much
like,
worse.
yeah, but yeah. So I think I do like to play it safe a lot. But I do think also at the same time. So the first thing I would do if I'm Lou is I'm getting a lot of scouts over to Colorado
Yeah, I
games,
was just thinking
and
that.
you have to talk to those scouts and determine, is this like, can this work? Is this somebody that Barry can work with? And is this someone that can mold, put himself into the Islanders mold as a defenseman? Because like you said, there's a lot of defensemen that would probably go, oh, I'm getting traded to the Islanders. That's a great, landing spot for a defenseman. But it's also a big commitment. What's another word for it? Maybe not commitment. It's a test too, because if you're not going to play well, you're not going to. If there are other options and they're better than you, you're not going to play. Although that's not true for Chara, he gets to play no matter what apparently. But I like more so in that I think if you get into not Lou, if you get into Trotz's doghouse, there's a lot of proving yourself to get out of it. So, some of the giveaways I've seen from him, I mean, I think Barry would have him sitting in the press box during the game in his gear. He'd just go, why don't you go upstairs?
Yeah.
In between periods. Why don't you go upstairs and hang out with Leo? And Leo's like,
yeah.
Hey. And then Leo slaps him, but not like the hard way, like the practice way he did with Bo. But just a great teammate, that guy.
Oh, wait, we wanted to say, I don't know, are you finished with that thought or anything left you wanted to say about those players?
No, I guess just I would have scouts on Girard. Obviously, I'd have scouts on Dermott too. And they've done a good job of creating a situation where either is an option. So
yeah. And knowing the way that the Islander hive mind tends to come up with these players, probably neither of them will end up being the ones that we end up trading for, if assuming that happens. Because I don't
trade for Taves.
I was about to say that,
dude.
Well, because
I'd be so happy.
It's kind of funny though, because it's like we'd be trading for another Colorado, we'd be trading for a Colorado player that's offensively minded, meaning like we gave one up to Colorado, a couple years ago.
Honestly,
so
I think that's how it came about on Isles' Twitter, that Samuel Girard would be a good fit, is because people were like, oh God, who's a good left-handed defenseman? How about let's get Devon Taves back? Like it started as a joke.
I see.
I don't see Colorado trading Taves back.
No,
was so good last year.
Him and McCarr together. I mean, it's just right.
Unless we purposely overpay because of sentimental value, which is always a good thing to do.
As in, like, give them like a first-round pick, and whatever we can.
First. We just want him. We just want him. We love him. No, but I think that's where like people started kicking up that idea. Like,
I see.
Oh, we were joking about Taves, but like we've got this other left-handed defenseman who's been rumored to be in the trade mill, and also like is getting pushed out by a prospect. So it is like a good situation for the Islanders there, because they might be motivated to get rid of Girard, and so maybe it won't cost as much. And for Travis Dermott, I don't think Toronto can ask a lot, because though he is young, I don't know. I feel like there's more upside with Samuel Girard with that offensive play. Dermott, I feel like everyone knows the upside isn't quite as high. So and he hasn't been amazing with the Leafs. So that's like you said, probably a Band-Aid. But if that Band-Aid, carries us over for the next 2 years and gets us over to, at some point, Bolduc and Salo playing together, like also not together on the same pair,
right
on the left side, then that's good. You're feeling good about. Everybody complains about the Islanders' age as a team, but it could get a lot younger very quickly with Chara and Green being replaced by young.
And now the fact that Komarov's not playing the season and going to be gone, same thing. And so I was going to ask one more question with that. What do you think that Girard's to put it harshly, like resale value would be? Let's say we do keep him for 2 years, like, and we tried to trade him. Like, would you?
Oh boy.
Well, because we could potentially get at least something back for him.
It's funny you mentioned that, James. The last 3 years of his deal. So his deal from 2014, from 2024, 2025 on to the end of the deal, 3 years, has a modified no trade clause.
Interesting.
So
Modified no trade clause. What does that mean?
so like he probably has like a list of teams that he can okay for them to trade to.
Interesting.
Yeah. So so there is an out there, but it's definitely a complex out.
Yeah.
And hopefully you would figure it out by that point because there are like what is it, three so including this year. I mean, he's got this year, next year, and the year after before you would even have to trade him. I feel like you have plenty of time to figure out. But also
that is true. I see what you're saying. So it's like you could do that before, at least the year before that no trade clause takes effect.
But also take into account, and I feel like it's easy for us not to take this into account, and myself as a big NHL GM guy, definitely easy to forget. I mean, it's easy to say like, if he doesn't play well, we'll just trade him. Well, who's going to trade for him if he's not playing well? And at that point, he'll be 3 years older.
Right.
So it's that contract.
But I think the idea is as long as you can get rid of if you can get him off the books, and get, you don't lose anything in return. You know what I mean? Whether that's a pick, because if we know we have those two guys in the minors, it's like then all we really have to worry about is getting him off the books. If we didn't have to give up too much from him in the first place, I suppose.
You don't want to get into too many situations where you're so desperate to get a guy off the books.
Right.
We saw with the Andrew Ladd trade, different situation because the older player was a power forward, a lot more miles on him. But you don't want to end up having to trade picks and a player for nothing, for future considerations.
Yeah.
Which are nothing. So, I would just. That's why I think the Girard one is less likely because of that. I think as a very strict cap guy, Lou would.
That makes sense.
Be more hesitant there because and that's where the scouts come in. If the scouts come in and they say, "No, we absolutely identify something in this game that we think will fit with the Islanders and that Barry could fix," then absolutely, he's 23 and he's got a 5-year deal. If you turn him around, if you reclaim him as a project, and all of a sudden he's great, that $5 million a year looks like it's exactly how much he should make.
Right.
So,
but it also does make sense that like you wouldn't want. From Lou's perspective, you've clawed your way to having this cap space, and you're not going to just like now fill it as soon as you know what I mean? Like consider. I mean, and everybody's in that situation, so it's like, cap is much more precious than it has been.
You definitely have to consider the fact that you have most of your core signed.
Yeah.
To longer, long-term deals, and they're pretty locked in. You have definitely you have to keep in mind that Sorokin and Barzal are here, but they're on bridge deals. You have to keep in mind that Wahlstrom is going to eventually get his big boy money. So definitely a lot to consider. That's why I think a lot of people are like, hey, you get rid of Bailey and you're using that money more effectively. So hypothetically, I don't think Bailey for Dermott straight up is a great deal because I think, first of all, Toronto can't do it. Well, actually, don't even worry about it because Toronto wouldn't be able to do that because they would be over the cap. So I don't think Bailey's going to Toronto at all. Colorado, probably not either. Well, that one's a little bit easier because it's a straight swap cash-wise, almost. Not exactly. So if it's Dermott, I think the Islanders are going to trade picks and a prospect. Probably not a roster player. If it's Girard, Bailey is now someone that Colorado actually could consider fitting under the cap. And it wouldn't be straight up. I feel like the Islanders would have to add a little bit to that.
I mean, just based on the age alone.
One of those players is younger.
Yeah. And I don't know what Colorado's situation is right now with their forwards. So.
Well, that's it's an interesting thing. Colorado's been off to a worse start to the year than you would have expected. Their depth hasn't been great.
I feel like though that's kind of the story of Colorado. Is like, why aren't they winning all the time? When it's like they're like the darling team.
But usually they're excellent in the regular season, and then it's the playoffs.
Right.
Now they're struggling in the regular season. We're all like, you guys were supposed to run away with that division. So, at least according to Tom, and he's always right. But I think Bailey wouldn't be the worst addition for a team that's looking for depth scoring over there. So
what's their playmaking ability like?
Yeah, they're a good playmaking team up top. Like I said, there's a lot of talent up top, and then they're
And then
hoping
depth-wise, like bottom six. Yeah.
like they're happy. They have a guy named JT Compher who's like was a highly thought of prospect that really hadn't done anything, and now this year he's off to a good start. But outside of that, like they have a couple guys that are off to slower starts. Nathan McKinnon's out 3 weeks now. Bailey can't really help there because he's not a center really anymore, even though he's drafted as a center. So I don't know if anything's imminent. But I mean, look, Lou's definitely preparing to make a move. He's doing moves to create cap space and stuff. So I feel like more so than in years prior, Lou is giving us notice, like, I'm going to do something. Because I am preparing for it. And
it's a lot earlier in the season than you'd expect, too. Normally it's like you start nearing the deadline.
Chara's been.
Yeah.
That's definitely – because, like, look, the Islanders have done everything they can to try to, give Chara a chance, and it's just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, Trot's coming out and saying, like, I was trying to get some guys to get some points. That's during the the Canadiens game. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't think it's super out of extraordinary.
I'm sure coaches do that, from time to time, but it's just surprising, I feel like, that he would say that, because I feel like it's kind of obvious. He didn't mention Chara by name, right? He just was saying. No. But it's like kind of obvious, right?
Yeah, and then we're definitely, I think Parise was probably out there at the same time. That's definitely a guy that they want to build up a little bit by getting him more, like, because, he deserves more reward for the play that he's been putting out good play. But, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say on that. Like,
all right.
Those are options. I'd love to hear in the comments what people think, what trades you could come up with. Like I said, Bailey's not going to Toronto. That's not happening because Toronto does not have.
Come on, Bailey and Tavares back on the same team.
Yeah, all of a sudden Bailey would be a 70-point player again.
That'd be crazy, but not for the Islanders. So I think there's only one thing we can end this podcast on, Tom, and I was going to bring it up earlier.
Drawn out ending.
I'm sorry, excuse me. You mean concise and to the point, like we always are. I was going to bring it up earlier, but I wanted to finish the Chara thing. Favorite Leo memory? Okay. Since he was going to not really be playing anymore. I think I have mine ready. Do you have yours?
Yes.
All right. You go first then.
All right. So in 2019-20, that was the year. Sorry, 18-19. That was the first year after Tavares left. It was the year that Barry came in, and it was the year that no one expected us to make the playoffs, and we did. And then in Game 3 of the Penguin series in the first round, on the way to the sweep, I went to Offside Tavern. Welcome back, Offside Tavern.
Yeah, welcome back. We did it, everybody. We got it back.
But I went to Offside Tavern for the one and only time that I got to see a playoff game there. And it was amazing, the atmosphere.
And Leo Komarov was there. And you're like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be at the game.
Yeah. And Leo scored a big goal to basically put Game 3 away and put us up 3-0 in the series. And it's probably the biggest contribution, like point-wise, that he's done. Leave that in. You got to keep him.
Sure.
Got to keep
it fresh.
Yeah. Well, no, that's definitely not fresh. But definitely, because like first you're like, goal, let's go,
right.
And then you're like, Leo.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
And that was so much fun, and that was one of the most fun experiences I've had watching a game without actually being there.
Yeah. I would say I kind of have two or three, but they're not real like specific memories. So the first was there was a few times last season, so the 2021 season, right? Because that entire season started in January. No.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, it was the 56 game season, where he was playing on the top line because Lee was hurt. That he just kind of surprised me, and he had that hustle, and so just in general, like he at times was the best replacement for Lee, like out of anybody that was on the top line, at times before we had Palmieri, and stuff too. And then the other thing, I really only have two, and the second one is that Instagram story that he had with Maddie Martin, with them on like a moped, and Matt Martin with his Brad Pitt looking face, like smiling, and Leo
Leo.
Komarov, right behind him. That was freaking weird. And I think about that and I smile very often. And
That's good.
those are my 2 favorite Leo memories.
That's good. I like that.
So let us know in the comments down below, all 9 of you who might leave a comment, which would be a lot.
Especially if you're watching this late into the video.
Yes. Who do you think we should trade for to replace Chara, and favorite Leo Komarov memory?
Yeah, and I mean, like, if you could come up with a favorite Leo Komarov memory, you're a fan.
Yeah, that's true.
You're a real fan.
You're keeping it real.
Yeah.
And that's how we do here in Belmont.
All right,
Bench.
are we going into full 1990s slang here?
We're
a little behind on the times.
No, we keep it hip. We keep it fresh,
There we go. I was going to say hip next.
But yeah, I think that's it. Right?
That's going to be a cap. I did it. I did the Elon Musk thing.
I don't understand. I don't get it, but
I don't either.
we'll keep on rolling to the end, which is now. So we'll see you later, everybody. Goodbye.
All right. Bye.
Wave your hand, Tom. Yay.